How's everybody doing?
All right.
Woohoo! I'm great at public speaking, so I'm going to tell you right now. This is going to be awesome. And I drank about 8 cups of coffee, so it's going to be great, guys. Are you ready? Okay. My name's Gino. Welcome to Merchant Market. Thank you so much for coming. This is a design build shop, so I pretty much take old trash, things that people look past, and turn it into this. So you're actually sitting in what I do. This is 2x4s with some crazy paint finishings that kind of started all of it. And I do mostly finishings and concept interiors and art on walls. So Taboo, I think many consider unconventional ways of doing things, and I think I kind of fell into that at a younger age. My mom had stores, and they were old antique stores. We grew up in the flea market, and I'd be next to a hip-hop shop, but I'd also be next to gold blinged out chains, and that's why you would see that on a deer. So all of these things come back to me, and I just now have grasped the idea of taking them and putting them into a new element. And I went to school at U of H, got an art scholarship. Woo! Cougs. I dropped out my 3rd year. Woo! So I can't really rep Cougs. But I just couldn't get past the core classes. Calculus, I think I opened the book one time, and my architecture teacher told me, you have to pass this or you can't go to Studio 3. I was like, oh, okay, this isn't going to happen. So I literally walked out and I said, I'm not doing it. And that's when I met my beautiful wife, Blanca.
Hey, Blanca.
And as faith happens, it was meant to be because we've been together 16 years. I have 3 kids with her, 17, sorry. Yeah. And I have 3 amazing kids, a 16-year-old, or 14-year-old, 10 and 6. Not good with numbers. Not good with numbers again. We talked about that. So after doing that, she told me her dream about opening a store. And I was like, great. My mom had stores. We can do this. It's awesome. It's easy. And it wasn't easy. So in 2003, we looked at places. We were hungry, determined. I was an artist. I was like, we can do this. We found a retail spot in Rice Village next to New Living, which was right on the corner, street value. Didn't realize a blessing had just dropped into our lap. $1,100 for the rent. We were like, oh, we can do this. I make that at bartending. So if I add up all my bartending tips in 1 month, we got the rent. And we had $10,000 on a credit card, and we're like, let's go. So, and her family owned construction companies, and they were going to help me build it, and I had no idea about construction, and I'll get into that later. But we opened Cosamia, and the finishings in the store got more attention than the product itself. We were written up in Texas Monthly. We had write-ups in WW Daily in New York. I was 002 People of Houston and all this crazy stuff. So I was like, they love the finishing. So I got more work off that. And it just led to understanding that people really wanted something different. And so I had to come up with ways, like I would do tissue paper on wall, and I'd get web spraying and plaster it over it, and it was like multiple layers. And that's why if you see the store, it's like kind of textured and layered. And I found that niche at an early age, and it just kept going. And then I got better at my skills, and eventually 2 people in Rice Village saw it out, and one was Premium Goods. I did her first store, and then she rebranded. I did it again recently, Uncle Funky's Daughter. I did finishings at Me Luna, Raspberry Rose, New Living. I helped with Jeff Kaplan, if you know him, great guy. And then it just spiraled, and I just kept doing it. And so for 3 years, I had to act really professional, and I'd come into clients' homes, and they would say, hey, I want my walls to be marbleized. And I was like, I can do that. And she was like, I just went to Caesar's Palace, And we're from A&M, and we want burgundy and white. And I was like, that would look so tasteful. Let's do it. And we had Sherbert Napoleon walls on the wall. So it was this awesome, if you think about high-end wall finishing right now, there is some marbleized patinaed wallpaper that is super expensive. So it's just a recycle of things, but just going for it and doing it, and it works if you let it, and you have the vision to kind of see it through. After that, I began to basically get my biggest project, which was a speakeasy concept, and they gave me full freedom to design it. And it was a bar in Rice, kind of outside of Rice Village off Bissonnette, called 18th Amendment, and it was a prohibition bar. And I didn't know what speakeasy was. I was like, oh, do I have to talk real soft when I come in here? What is speakeasy? And it was just cool because they were like, we just love this look. And we had just traveled to New York for the store, and this is 5 years later again, but I remember these stores looking really raw and like, is it supposed to look like this? And I just found the niche, and it worked, and he said just do it, and they had inspiration pictures, and I was like, I visualized it, and it ended up being one of my best build outs, which led kind of to my career in concept interiors. So if you wanted a Star Wars room, which I could do it, I could put this on the ceiling, do metal rivets, use random stuff, and it would look great, and I would experiment and copy high-end wall finishings like Mayan Romanoff and Dangya and all this stuff, and these designers would come to me and say, hey, do you know what mica is? I was like, yeah, it's a rock. Well, can you put it on paper? I was like, yeah. And so I would research, and mica flakes led to new wall finishings, and then it just kept going and going and going. After that, about 3 years later, I did a big venue, which was Corner Table. It was 5 venues in one, and the owner had the biggest art collection in probably the United States, and she was just like, I'm going to put all this high-end art, but I want you to make it like this fantasy world where people come in and it just looks really, really elegant. I want it to look like it's from Europe, and then I want it to be this mixology to where they're going to mix drinks and do this and this. And I was like, okay, we can knock it out. And we stayed on that job for 7 months, almost bankrupting, not being able to finish. Everybody thinks it's so easy to do it, and it's like calculating budget, crews, cost, all that stuff. So by the end of the job, we were so tight on budget that we had to be really, again, resourceful, and that goes back to the whole taboo of, I can't use that there. And I was like, yes, I can. And I can't put that there. And I was like, yeah, we can. So we would use doors to build the booths. We would put old lights from thrift stores and buy every one of them around town. I would buy 50,000 packs of sequins and hand glue each one on the walls. Then I would carve it, make these trees, and we would just do it on the spot. And this lady loved art, so she was just like, oh my God, that's amazing. And it just led to one room, to the next room, to the next room, and the next room. And that lasted for about 6 months, like I said, and then that was in 2006, so after that, we just were really, really, really slammed, busy, and people just started calling me for, oh, can you do a thematic interior that looks like it's from Morocco? And I was like, yeah, it's awesome. So I'd research Moroccan interiors, we'd put rugs on the wall, I'd take Moroccan chandeliers, cut them, repurpose them, weld them, put them underneath, and it was just a trial and error of doing things, but it led to me having a vision to see past certain things and not judging them and saying, oh, you can't use that because the design books tell you that that's not right, or you can't hang 50 light bulbs in one small intimate space and give you an impact. So I think with that said and exploring different finishings, I wouldn't really be afraid of looking at things differently and taking the chance to do it. It's because I think that's really what makes this interior space and what people like interesting, and it gives it emotion and it gives it a sense of, I really don't say no to any jobs unless it's like you want a skyscraper in your backyard, but we can build out of Legos, I guess. Something like that. So I do a lot of work for different athletes and some designers and stuff that are real recognized, but they see that little bitty quality of he visualized it and I can execute it. And I think that's super important in the design world and as an artist to go for it and just do it, and then you hone your craft, because I would never think that me doing sherbet ice cream wall finishing on a big wall would ever turn into this. And that just goes back to this piece of art. I think if you follow rules and trends, I believe it's simple, and if you surround yourself around things you love and buy things that you love just because of the wear and the character, it's nostalgic, and I believe the sentiment also translates. And I hope the experience today and what I've kind of told you and walked you through will let you look at things different. And my story inspires you to keep going, don't quit. But if you don't hate yourself, it's really cool because life can be great. Nope, that's part of the whole trick. So yeah, I really thank everybody for coming, and I just really love what I do. I have a passion for it, and I think that everybody should just keep going for what you're doing and live life to the fullest, and don't be afraid, and don't think outside the box, and taboo is something different that we're not supposed to do. So thank you again, and that's me.